Future first, Zach. And so you're going to have to say your last name because it's a toughie.
Yeah, Zachary Divelbiss. I go by Zach, owner of Future First Criminal Law.
Okay. So I'm going to tell you a story, and then I'm going to divulge why I sought you out.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're competitors.
Yep.
You compete against the Arizona firm. I manage the Arizona firm. And so, but I really like what I saw, what you're messaging out that you're throwing out in the universe. And I really like the way you're going about your business and that you're helping folks. I did. And so I had to just, you know what, I'm going to talk to this guy. I want to see what makes him tick. How did he come to what took me forever to come to so quickly? So a lot of years ago, Maria was her name. And so it's general enough, but that was really her name. And she had, this is a case that you're going to probably recognize because you've seen it personally a handful of times at least. She had a DUI, and she was struggling getting her license back because of the amount of DUIs that she had gotten. And anyway, there was physical abuse in the home. She grabbed husband's keys. She had relapsed that night, so that's shocker, I know, right? She had relapsed that night during the fight, or before it, probably. And she had put a lot of effort in to be sober for quite a long period of time, so that there's probably a little bit of emotional guilt going on, so on and so forth. She and husband get into it. She grabs husband's keys, drives to the casino, continues her drinking, drives back and gets her third DUI, which is an aggravated DUI, a felony DUI.
Rings a bell.
Yeah, I would assume that would...
Rings a bell.
Yeah, that's not a fact pattern that's too terribly...
No, very, very general.
Yeah. Okay, you've seen that case before. Uh-huh. This is many years ago, so we're during Arpaio's administration, and they've loosened a little recently, you know all about that, but it's still pretty rough getting a felony DUI, and she says to me, what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? I did all this work for so many years to be sober. I'll continue that. I want to continue that. What more can I do? What more can I do? What more can I do? She would call tastefully. She's a great client. Mm-hmm. So every couple of weeks, what more can I do? And back then, 2.5 years was the pinch, period, end of story. And she took 2.5 years. There wasn't anything more she could have done to garnish more favor from that judge and from that prosecutor back then. Mm-hmm. That was what it was. We see different resolutions now, 4 months being a pretty good slap. Sometimes if they're really ticked at the person and there's maybe a auto wreck and something involved, 8, 2.5, man, that was a punch in the gut for me.
Yeah, 2.5 years default, no questions asked. Yep. You could be the next Zuckerberg. They don't care. Yeah. You're going for 2.5 years.
And that's what happened. And it didn't matter what she did, but it changed how I looked at things because even though we got a crappy result, in my opinion, as you just mentioned, it was, bury it deep back then. Even though that result sucked, I felt like we were on the offensive the whole entire time. And once she went in, once she knew very well that she was going in for 2.5 years at some point. And she started looking for, how do I continue my progress? How do I continue? And so I'm looking at other attorneys, social media, TikToks, YouTubes. What are folks doing out there? What is their messaging? What is their message out to the universe? And I see future first. And I start, the name popped. And I thought, that can't be an accident. That name cannot be an accident. So I like to think we practice that way. Mm-hmm. But to see that name beautifully, just future first, I'm kind of jealous, A, of the name. It's awesome. And B, I liked the messaging. So how did you come to that? where did you come to Future First?
Yeah, I graduated law school right at a young age, so 26. I think I was the youngest person in my graduating class, top of my class, and I was gonna plan on having this long stint with the public defenders, and they pulled the rug out from under me, unbeknownst to me. They said, "Yeah, Zach, we're gonna hire you as an attorney, get your background and all that cleared through the state bar, since you got to do that to become a lawyer." And
Right.
took a little longer based on my colorful history. So anyways, they pulled the rug out from under me, and I said, all right, well, I still have this passion. I still want to help these people that are getting in trouble. And part of, my passion is because people get in trouble for things that they don't always know, or they make these 5-minute mistakes. And so I started my law firm. And wet behind the ears, you put in, Divelbiss law firm, you make the classic your last name. And I realized fairly quickly, and I don't know why this didn't click sooner, but it was like, nobody can pronounce Divelbiss.
Right.
Divelbiss, and every judge is struggling with this. And so it's so funny because then I was talking to I was in a business coaching program for law firms early on as well. And it was one of the early things that they were pushing to a lot of people. And Arizona allows for trade names, and most states don't when it comes to law firms. And so they said, look, you have a unique advantage here. You can create, a brand that's not your name. One, because your name's difficult, but two, that's the way the world's going. And, you don't have the Ubers and the, everything else. Like, that's not someone's name anymore. And sure, you'll find plenty of businesses that, long-standing names, the J.P. Morgan Chases of
Dillard's
the world. And
sure,
stuff.
There's going to be around.
But I very early on learned that, like, wait, this isn't also an ego thing for me. I don't need to have my name on the firm. I don't need to have my name on the building. People aren't hiring me. They're hiring the law firm. And so early on I said, what am I trying to do with our clients? What are my clients really interested? What is my passion? And let's create the brand after something like that. And, whatever it was on a Word document, I came up with, dozens of things that were, clever and catchy, honest law firm and, integrity law firm, all these, simple, fun things. And then it really struck me once I said, somebody reached out and was like, it really seems like you're trying to protect people's futures, and I'm like, well, yeah, duh. Like, because we're in criminal defense, we try and, overlook some of these 5-minute mistakes and give them second chances and sometimes third chances and try and make sure that they still have a future and they're not punished for the rest of their life. And part of why I lost my job at the public defenders was because 6 years before that, I had a DUI when I was 19. And I was like, I didn't think 6 years later this was going to have a problem. And so I really wanted to start protecting our futures.
Right.
And that's what we put first. And we said, let's put our future first, criminal law, and let's see if it resonates with a lot of clients. Well, it really did.
It did with me, and I really feel like the message is, that's why I wanted to meet you. And so here we are, because putting the tomorrows first, in my opinion, not only is it a catchy, fun, okay, yeah, that makes sense. On a molecular level, that makes sense. Okay, all right. Future first, sure. It's kind of like if the Lord wants, type thing. However, if you really believe this, it puts you in a completely different posture, legally speaking as well. Because they say, and whoever they are, they say that a great defense is a better offense.
Uh-huh.
And so future first, to me, on the legal side of things, when you look at it that way, it means you're taking the offensive.
Uh-huh.
You're capturing what we can do, even though there's all these rules that you're getting your clients through and all these, hearings and procedures and whatever.
It's a big old chess match.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're trying to find the best thing, the best solution, given every circumstance. In the meantime, one of the biggest wild cards, one of the biggest things that we have is client management, client communication, client development sometimes. I mean, you can call this a lot of different things too. But when the client engages with their own defense, when they engage there, man, that team just got a lot stronger.
Absolutely.
And so when I saw future first, I'm like, I like that. I like that a lot. And so what are some of the ways you put the tomorrows into the defense of your clients?
Yeah, and it really starts, in my opinion. So talking about the justice system as a whole, especially the Arizona justice system, people, hear, 5-minute clips, 20-minute clips, whether they're on the news, the radio, whatever it is, of, hey, this person got out, free, and then, but then they hear the other side of, well, this person, the judge could have done this, and now they went and murdered 3 people, right? There are some polar sides to the criminal justice world. And one of the things I recognized early on, though, is the common theme is every part of the justice system involves a human being. And that's the key. That's the key for us, is we say, look, at every stage here, there's a human being, whether it starts with the police officer, then the case hands over to a prosecutor who supports that police officer, and then there's a judge. And every single one of these people have rules. And I bring the criminal law book here that shows this is
prettier every year.
This is exactly, I'm a big fan of blue, but this is all the laws, and this is small print, and it's impossible to know all this. It is 100% impossible. In law school, they don't teach you the entire book.
Right. Or very little of it.
Exactly.
Right.
They teach you how to learn and how to interpret these laws. And that's ultimately what we found very early, is we said, look, instead of using the hard line of the law, instead of being like the best criminal defense lawyer who knows every single law in the book and, we know every single, loophole, let's start connecting with these prosecutors, with these judges, with these officers at more of a human level, and letting them know, hey, we're not trying to one-up you. We're not trying to pull a wool over your eyes. We're not trying to, make you have the head news story next week of you made something go wrong. And we're not trying to hide the ball. Classic law school term is they hide the ball from you. And we're not trying to do that with a lot of our clients. And so what we say and what we focus on, a lot of our, ideal clients and the people we market to are people who, especially when it comes to DUIs, it's not their first time drinking and driving.
Right.
It's the first time they got caught, though.
Right.
And so most of these times, these people are not like, hey, Zach, I need to get out of this 100%, I'm not accepting anything, fight the world for me. Most of the time, they're coming to us saying, hey, look, I've got a job. I've got a career on the line. I'm in the middle of a nasty divorce and I could lose custody. I, don't want to lose my secondary and post-secondary education that is going to further my career path. I would like to protect those things. And yes, I know I did it. And so when we kind of take all of this together and we go to these prosecutors and to these judges and we say, hey, look, we know this person did it. This person did it. The officer did everything right in this situation. The prosecutor's doing everything right. And the judge, by law, will do everything right. And we're asking, though, for a second chance. And we're asking, in some situations for a third chance. Not that common, but, it happens. And we're saying, look, this 5-minute mistake here, while this book says you must do this kind of punishment, we're asking for something different because of this human being who is now here in front of us.
Right.
And that's the hard part about prosecutors and judges. They're usually not bad people in any way.
Right.
Even, public defenders, being at the public defender's office early on, they're really good lawyers. They're really good judges. They're just so busy. They see hundreds of people come in and go through their desk and the paperwork every single week. And so we try and say, look, we're not just another number. We have a human being here, and here's some photos of their family. Here's some photos of their promotion that they got recently, and this is where they, went to dinner and celebrated this. Here is, obviously anything that shows that they will lose their job if this conviction goes through or if this punishment happens or whatever it may be.
Right.
And we really try and tell the story of each of our clients to get these prosecutors and judges to do something that's a little different.
Have you found it interesting that the prosecutor and the judge, but let's focus on the prosecutor right now. Have you found it interesting when you simplify and you provide as early on as possible I hesitate to use the word thumbnail, but a sketch of who your client is, what makes them different, what they have been doing since this all happened, and showing that remorse, showing that they are acting on that remorse, showing that they are working vigilantly in often cases really hard to achieve, let's say, sobriety or to accomplish the classes that are mandatory that they need to take, but they haven't been told to take them yet, or all of these positive steps that they take. And oh, by the way, they have 2 kids, and oh, by the way, they're in nursing school at night, and so on and so forth. And you present that to them as early as you can in the case, turning them from CR number 2023 dash blah 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 to Jane Doe, to Maria, to that name. I mean, do you find that effective?
Absolutely, very effective, and it's in the same thread here that each of these packets, they get a file similar to something like this on their desk, stacked by their paralegal, up above their head, and they've got to go through every single one. Well, they're not actually going through every single one. What they're doing, these prosecutors, to generalize, they're looking at what we would call like the summaries, and they're looking at the officer's synopsis of this is what the officer is saying that happened. They're hitting the highlights of, yep, this is all the bad stuff. And if we go in there with our Cliff Notes version now of, hey, just so you're aware, not saying you're not going to review the entire police report, but the officer got it right in these few situations, but the officer might have gotten it wrong on this page, and this page, and you should be aware of that. And also, here's everything about Maria, who is, a nighttime nursing student who has 2 kids and volunteers on the weekends. And this was a total, accidental situation that happened a year ago. And look, we know you guys were so busy that you waited a year to actually charge this. And during this entire time, they did go through, they hired us a year ago, and we've had great communication with them. They've, assured us they're sober today. They've completed all this counseling ahead of time that they knew they were going to eventually have to do. It really goes so much further, because now that prosecutor can basically say, wow, it's kind of like this defense attorney was also on my side, and they can now check a few more boxes saying they really double-checked the police report. 1, they checked it, and 2, a defense attorney checked it, and we helped them do their work.
Isn't it fun? I mean, it sounds like you're describing something amazing. Isn't it fun when you are collaborating with a prosecutor to better serve your client? Like that moment in time, there's some sort of gear shift wherein we're both working hip to hip for a minute, and you may be fighting like a dragon with this person the next day over something else, but that moment you're working on somebody's future together, and that shows preparation on your end, and that's what, again, why your name popped out to me. It's like you're willing to prepare and to work and to prepare your client all the way throughout to present the best them to that prosecutor first, and then ultimately to a judge. I'm assuming your experience, I don't know this though, but judges have a hard time or don't want to put somebody behind the wall or in jail for a prolonged period of time that's working their butt off.
Yeah.
They don't really want to do that. They don't want to have that gavel drop on that result. They don't really like that. Now, there are some things judges hate, like you've got very limited probation things to do, and you're screwing those up. Okay, they don't like that.
Yep.
So we need a do-over from time to time in those scenarios, but they don't really want to throw the book, even that heavy, big book with all those rules in it, that they don't know all those rules either. They don't want to throw that book at somebody that's trying hard.
Yeah. And in the beginning, kind of what you mentioned, and this is the foundation of of a lot of our criminal justice is we're in an adversarial criminal justice system. So this means literally it's a fight.
Right.
It's an MMA UFC fight, and the judge is the ref, and we're on one side, one corner, and the prosecutor's in the other corner. That's the foundation, the principle of criminal defense and prosecutorial prosecution in the justice system, and we're changing that at our firm. We're saying, look, it's not necessary to fight every single battle in the ring.
Right.
Let's take a step out. Let's show them that actually, this is the truth. This is the reality. This is what actually happened. And let's get them, to change their perspective, as opposed to, definitely some defense lawyers will go in, nope, I'm going in the ring first every time. And they want that fight. And that is 100% allowed to be your strategy.
Why do you think they do that?
Well,
take the gloves off. No pun intended. Why do you think they do that?
I think part of the problem is people who've been doing this for a long time they build biases. They build, and every single person has biases, no matter who you are, prosecutor, judge, defense attorney, defendant, police officer, you have inherent biases. And similar to any job, you build up, a few different things. Some of them are good habits. Some of them are bad habits.
Right.
And especially the longer you have a job, you start learning, the shortcuts. You start learning the easier ways to get around some things. And some, whether it's defense attorneys, whether it's prosecutors, whether, it's a judge, they've been doing it for so long. They're like, no, let's skip all the pillow talk. Let's just get to the fight. They want to get into it because they know that's the quickest way to solve a case, to be like, all right, it's done and over with, and we lost the fight, or we won the fight, whatever it is. And as a defense lawyer, you have to be really good at losing, because it's not that often you win these fights.
Can you say that one more time? You got to get really good at losing, because the cards are stacked against you.
100%.
And so let me proffer this idea, because I do like your point of view on that a lot. Okay, so let's just cut to the chase and let's get to the fight. Okay, you guys are full of crap. Okay, but I've got a case to explode out there, and so okay, I get that. That's putting humanity. It's a really, really positive way of looking at it. I have a negative way of looking at it. I like your way. I'm going to kind of mill that around a little bit. I think it's complete BS, and they're pounding their chest, and they want to make an impression on their client like they're fighters, they're gladiators, they're saving the day, damsels in distress, male and females alike, and they're coming in and swooping them and putting them on their back, even though they're going to the very depths of hell, because 95% of these things are going to lose. They're going to crash, burn, and blow up, and you don't have their best interest in mind. You just want them to think you do, so that they tell all their friends. And that's what I think.
Yeah, so very ego-driven.
Because lawyers can be, and oftentimes are, jackwagons, let's call it. And I like the way you look at it, because you look at it more from a pure standpoint that these guys really do want what's good, or these attorneys, guys, girls alike, these attorneys want what's good for their client, but they're just trying to skip the flatteries, the attaboys, and all that crap, the procedural brain damage, let's call it. And they're trying to skip that. Okay, that's interesting. I looked at them as a-holes that just wanted to pound their chest.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things and this is changing.
It's probably a little both, I guess.
It probably is. And we changed this, looking at the prosecutor, especially for us. We're on our defense side, and sometimes it's hard to judge us from the inside, but it's easier to judge people, looking at them. And so we work with a ton of prosecutors. Yeah. And prosecutors, all different ages, different, sexes, different backgrounds, different histories. And one of the things that we see most commonly is that, of course, they're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of cases. Yeah. And so they grow numb. Yeah. They
jaded even.
Exactly.
Jaded.
You watch 5, carjackings come across your desk, and the 6th person, you're just over it. You're like, I'm sick of these. This person's getting the hammer. They're going to go down. And that person had no idea there was 5 people before
Right.
them. And so, and that's kind of where, even speaking to judges sometimes, yeah, I mean, judges really don't, wake up in the morning like, I can't wait to, really, fill up our jails, right now.
Right.
They're looking for any real possibility to get somebody back out on probation, whatever it is. But at the same time, there are judges who are like, look, before, 10:30 a.m., I've sentenced, 5 different people to 5+ years of prison. And now the next person that's coming to me asking for 1 year, I'm gonna be like, no, look, I'm on a 5-year trend today. Like,
Right.
and it's just, they become numb because
Yeah.
there are definitely some situations where these judges are dealing with really tough outcomes,
Right.
and they have to kind of, set themselves aside, and prosecutors alike. And, they can get really numb to this and not lose sleep over, look, this person's going to do a lot of prison.
You're 100% right.
We've got to break that down.
Even that number, even the time in prison, they're numb to.
Yeah.
That's a very good point that you have.
I
They're
mean,
numb. And so you're trying to slap them alive.
Yeah, and say, look,
Give them
this
something
jail's
to chew
not
on.
the answer.
Right? Little bite-sized chews to where they can chew on something that actually gets them to look at the human side of things, because all of them have it.
Absolutely.
You just got to find that way to it.
Yeah.
That's basically what you're saying. You got to your angle is to find your way to that human side of the prosecutor, that human side of the judge. Both of them come into play at some point.
And how we do that is we're fairly transparent, and again, we don't hide the ball. We tell them, hey, look, we're not trying to pull the wool over your eyes here.
At some point, you don't even have to say that.
Oh, of course.
They don't even. They know you're not full of crap.
Yeah.
At some point,
because you build a good reputation, and
you're
you work
there
with them
enough. Right. You're at each court enough. You're in front of. You've got all these folks that you're in front of all the time. At some point, they know Zach's not throwing me BS.
Where they see future first criminal law, and they're like, oh, we know what this firm does.
Yeah.
They truly somehow find all these clients who have these really great stories and situations in their life, and this was a 5-minute mistake.
I think it goes further than that, Zach. I really do. I mean, so Future First goes in front of them, and they see what, in my opinion, what they're seeing is that place knows how to help their people. That place knows how to help their people. That's the interesting point. It just subconsciously goes through their mind as they have all these stacks of, and all this numbness and all this ugly going on. They see that and they go, they know how to. I wonder what I'm going to see today with Future First. I wonder what I'm going to see today with this Future First firm. I wonder what I'm going to see today. This is going to be, oh wow, okay, that's interesting. That's new. I like that. It's
and we put new twists on it every time, so that way it doesn't just look like we're submitting the same thing, but just changing the person's name.
I found you're right about that, and I found that we go with the hand we're dealt, right? So if the police report is ripe with a bunch of law that the officer tripped on every which way but Sunday, we're gonna probably be open up a can of whoop-eye on that one. But when you don't have that awesome scenario, and most law enforcement, you give them a call and you say, hey, dude, I'm reading this report here.
Double check this.
Boom, 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 boom. And I mean, we've had those things like yanked. And all of a sudden, no more charges. I mean, that has happened. And so, okay, it doesn't happen all the time, very, very, very rarely. But they're fun when it does.
And it's rare you can even get a case that early as well. One, for the client to find you early enough while there's just an open investigation, and two, to catch it before it's even been submitted to a prosecutor. Then their hands are completely off.
Now they're tied. Now they're like, I
mean,
a lot of things have to align.
One of our earliest cases that I ever represented someone on. I mean, this must have been within the first 10 cases I ever did.
Oh, wow, okay.
And this guy came to me because, of course, I was probably charging much lower than I should have in my younger years. And he had these major felonies, and he had a track record. He had, not the best history. A good amount of time had passed, so I saw that going for him. And it was this drug case, and they supposedly found all these drugs in his back shed. And so undercover,
Why are
informant.
they always in the shed?
I don't
they
know.
believe in air conditioning their drugs?
And so they raid the house, right? And so when you do a raid, basically they go in, SWAT clears the house, gets everyone out, and then the head detective goes in and puts a sign-in sheet to every single door, in the bedrooms, and of course there's a sign-in sheet on the shed. And we found, stacks of reports, taller than this book here, going through of all the dozens of officers that were involved. And one of the things my guy's telling me, he's like, Zach, I did not have any drugs in there. And I'm like, yeah, okay,
Right,
sure.
right.
How did they magically just find a pound of these drugs in there?
Right.
Like that's just weird. But I took it an extra step. And this is one of those situations where, you kind of do fight a little bit. You're not just rolling over or anything like that. And I quickly realized the officers who signed in their name and badge number and the time that they entered and the time they left, 2 of them were fake. They weren't real.
Interesting.
They just 100% were not real names of real officers or real badge numbers.
Ooh, what'd you do with this case?
And so I went to the prosecutor and I said, hey, look, guess what? I'm coming here and we could really rock your world and go to trial and embarrass you after, 2 weeks of this major investigation to find, this pound of drugs and you just got this all off the street.
You just so happen to have
and
2.
My guy's sitting here in my ear telling me that this didn't happen. This wasn't real. It wasn't his. And it just so happens that the 2 officers who found all the drugs don't exist.
Right. Ken Griffey Jr.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it was generic. It was, Officer Smith, badge 1, 2, 3, 4. And I was like, look, if you can go and find these officers for me.
I'd love to interview them.
I'll back off a little bit, but I'd want,
But you gave them a chance.
You drew them a chance.
You drew the sting to where they could maintain composure and some semblance of, okay, they can bow out graceful.
Yeah.
You gave them the option. The door is unlocked right there.
And before this, they were not backing off less than half a dozen years of prison.
Oh, okay.
They were like, nope.
They're playing hardball.
You are not getting a better deal than this guy's going for 6+ years.
They're playing hardball.
And after they went back and investigated that, they were like, let's do probation. And I was like, let me go talk to my client and see if probation's something he's interested in. And he knew. The reality, and this is the hard part as well of the book.
Yeah.
Is there's literally a sentencing sheet here in Arizona that says if you roll the dice, you go to trial
and don't win,
and you don't win, that 6 years of prison all of a sudden would have been really good because you're now stuck there for 15 years versus probation. And this is the hard part of what we deal with in a lot of situations is like, we got you a really good deal and an outcome, which is considerably better than a trial if you lose. And that's why so many people take
which
plea
still
deals.
isn't justice.
It's not.
But we'll swallow it with you because we know it's not justice. But dadgum, you don't want to roll those dice and even risk the 6 years or 10 or 15. That sentencing chart is real.
Yeah.
And a lot
Judges'
of people,
hands are tied.
A lot of people go to trial and lose even though they likely shouldn't. And a lot of people go to trial and win when they shouldn't too. Lest we forget. Lest we forget.
It's there. It happens.
It has been there and it will happen again. And so I like that you work with the system, not against it. And I like that you present your client as they present to you, who they are. That makes it a little bit easier because each one of them, you said earlier that you put a little bit of a different spin. Well, yeah, because you represent a different individual that is going to this AA and has this particular sponsor, or is going to has this particular job and really just made a mistake, or blah, 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 blah. I mean, each individual, as we find them, we're encouraging them from the get-go. It sounds like this is what Future First law firm does, is encourage your clients to absolutely better themselves. You learn from this. Even if they're completely innocent, learn from this situation because, okay, let's just throw it out there. There can be, from time to time, somebody that's completely, utterly innocent, other than. they have made some pretty poor decisions on whom they hang out with,
Yep.
who they spend their time with. And yeah, they find themselves wrongfully accused of something their friends are, I think this is a term of art, dumbassedly doing.
Yeah.
And
Guilty by association.
we used to get hammered for stuff our friends did all the time. I mean, this is part of our punishment growing up. I mean, Mom, I didn't do it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Ignorance is not a defense. Right. And if you're living in a house where they're selling drugs out of it every day, and you're like, no, look, I just stayed in my bedroom all day. I never once saw a drug transaction. Right. It's a real tough thing to say, no, what do you mean you lived here for 3 years while, detectives were watching the house and stinging it for 3 months and they watched you come and go with all these same people.
You said hi to them 47 different times.
You may not have been carrying any of the backpacks, but now you're sitting here going, you had no idea, you weren't participating, you were just an innocent bystander.
It sounds like you've heard this before.
Yeah, that's hard. I mean, one of the things that I believe, and this is a polarizing thought here, that I somehow, somebody must have told this to me. I don't think I came up with this. But, it's all about part of why we do what we do when it comes to the prosecutor and the judge and the police and stuff, is we as defense lawyers, in my opinion, should not have a job. We are not written in the Constitution. We are not, meant to truly be here. Because the way the system is supposed to work is they write the laws, everybody's educated about all the laws magically, which is impossible.
Right.
And then, you go out into society and you don't break the laws. But if the police show up and they find out that you did break the law, the police, if they were 100% perfect, would never do anything that's unconstitutional. They would never violate your rights in any way. But guess what? Even if they did, that's why there's a prosecutor. The prosecutor is supposed to identify when the police do something wrong and get rid of those cases.
Right.
And let's just say the prosecutor misses it. Well, that's why there's a judge, because the judge is the last line of defense to
and that is
say
the truth. That is the way it's drawn up.
This is the way the system is built. But this goes back to one of the original things I said, is every part of the system involves humans.
Right.
So then they said, wait a second. Innocent people are still going through all these checks and balances and still being found guilty when they're innocent. So we've got to bring in defense attorneys. These people need representation because they need somebody to advocate for them. They need someone to double check what's going on, because guess what? The police could be wrong. And even if the prosecutor doesn't catch it, the defense attorney can help bring that to light that they didn't catch something. And then even if we get to the judge's level, again, these judges are human beings. The judges didn't memorize this whole book. The judges can wake up on the wrong side of the bed. The judges can be tired. They're not machines. And then we can go and illustrate to them that, hey, this is not one of these situations that you're used to encountering.
Have you ever, I like that you just brought this up in this way. Have you ever, let's say, slipped out the back door with your client, got a continuance on a day where you were prepared to see it all the way through, but just read the room a little bit? Everybody seems to be drinking some sour.
Yeah, if it's a full moon and it's a Friday the 13th and, the judge never looks up from the bench and keeps banging the gavel and is yelling at everyone, that's for sure one of those, hey, we're going to
whisper to your client here, we're going to go ahead and come back. Are you going to be available in 15 days?
I'm sorry you got to take another day off work, but today's not the day.
I promise it's worth it.
You can read the room like that. It doesn't hopefully happen too often.
Every once in a while, I could see it happening.
I mean, there are other times where it's the exact opposite. We're like, oh my God, the judge and the prosecutor, everyone's like on the right, they're in sync. They love it.
They're feeling some juju going on.
It's usually right after, in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. I think they all go and associate with their family. Then they realize, oh my God, like my family is breaking all these laws that I prosecute people for.
Yeah.
And then we go in between that time period, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, let's give you this really good deal. And we're like, yes. We are not leaving today till this is done.
Nice.
So that's the other side of we will make sure we bring everyone in on those good days.
All right. Well, on behalf of the Arizona firm, we really like the Future First firm. We love the way you're putting people's futures and the way you're dealing with the practice of law as to, okay, your tomorrows matter.
Absolutely.
Your tomorrows matter. Let's make the most today. Let's work hard today because those tomorrows matter. And you caught my eye. I think you should be catching a lot of folks' eyes out there. I love the way that you're going about it. And if there's anything else you want to share with the audience, go right ahead. But I'm pretty much done. I just love the fact that you're looking at tomorrows.
No, that's what we do. I appreciate you having me on here. I appreciate you helping all of us have exposure. In my opinion, there's no such thing as competition between defense attorneys.
I agree.
There are tons and tons of clients out there. There are tons of people who need our help.
Yeah.
And this is the hard part about our services is there's no try it before you buy it. You can't be like, oh, let me hire this law firm real quick for like a week or two, see if I like them, and then now I'll go to another.
Right.
It's a really difficult thing to do,
right.
And we all claim to be good at what we do. So it's like a huge struggle, And I've been a defendant before, especially with my DUI. Is
right.
like. You just type onto Google like, "Hi, I'm looking for a good criminal lawyer," and
right.
20 plus names are going to pop up.
You're just picking one out of the hat,
and you don't know exactly. You can't try before you buy, and
right.
that's why meetings like this are so valuable. That's why to me marketing is so valuable. It's such a good service to all our future clients out there because they can say, maybe Zach's firm's not for me, right?
Yeah.
And we have tons of people that we tell them, we say, hey, look, you might not be our ideal client. We don't think we can give you the full services of our firm,
right.
especially if you're not that interested. You just want the case to magically go away. That's not the way it works. You got to do some work here.
Yeah.
But here's another good firm that does do that, and they're not going to ask you a single question about your background, and they're going to go and they're going to fight for you the best they can.
Right.
So that's why this is so valuable. Because different firms have different fortes and clients need different things.
And people don't understand. I like that you're saying that because people don't understand. I mean, they want excellent representation and they don't necessarily know what they're looking for, number one. And number two, which I get that, but number two, the folks out there that need legal representation, how many times have you had somebody that has or wants to fire whomever is representing them? And they come in and they show you a bunch of whatever, right? A bunch of documents and a plea agreement that was offered, extended, and so on. And you look at this and you're looking at it going, well, it's not bad. This is not bad work.
Yeah.
This is not bad work. And you tell them that this is not bad work. Yeah, but.
But what can you do better?
Right.
Can you get me better? And there's nothing wrong with getting a second opinion.
And I respect that. Right.
But we, at least this is the policy at Future First, we refuse to take a case from another attorney unless they have completely, I forget the word we exactly use, but in case they completely can't work together.
Right.
If they just have a disagreement about the outcome or what, their strategy is, we say, no, you've built up such a good connection with that lawyer. That's who you need to stay with because we can't guarantee you a different outcome.
So it's kind of why I was bringing that up. I'm sitting here looking at it going, much like Future First, the Arizona firm is sitting here looking at this going, that's pretty bloody good. So we'll do a courtesy call to the attorney saying, look, I got your client in here. Don't get ticked off here because they're seeking a second opinion. It's all good. 99.9% of all defense attorneys are like, cool, all right. Hey, pick up the phone and give them a call every once in a blue moon. I'm giving you some glowing remarks here, but just give them some communication. I think all of these little woes would go away. We've probably made those types of calls quite frequently enough because we don't really want to just take somebody's money when all the work has been done. That just doesn't feel right. That's just not what we're
it goes
about.
back to that macho lawyer, thing that you were talking about is sometimes when that happens, it's deceitful for the attorney to be like, oh, wow, yeah, I can totally beat what your past lawyer's doing. They're not doing anything. And then they sign, a big, retainer. And then they go to court the next day and they're like, oh, sorry, that's as good as it got.
Right.
It's like, wait a second.
They're really good at backpedaling.
You just told me, 3 weeks ago you could do so much better. And again, that's part of what we don't want. We don't want to ever seem deceitful. And
the funny thing about that, Zach, is that happens all the bloody time, all the time.
I mean, to a degree, you don't know what you're going to get,
Right.
but it's
Right.
we
We're
try
all
to keep our
blindfolded.
hands
Lady
clean.
Justice is blindfolded. For the love of Pete. Man, it was awesome meeting you. I can't wait to do this again with you. I like it.
Of course, of
All
course.
right. Okay. Let's go.
Thank you, everyone, for following and watching today. This is Zach from Future First. Dana, appreciate it.
Dana at the Arizona firm, and Zach, you've been awesome.
Thank you.